Hello everybody, welcome back to 30 for 30. If you're watching live, can you let me know in the chat? Can you see me? Can you hear me? How are you today? How are you getting on with this weird world situation? Well, we've got a beautiful day here near Nottingham in the UK. The sun is out and I'm feeling great about 30 for 30. We're getting into our application phase. Yesterday, we dealt with the all-important planning and conceptualization, and today we're going to get started with our task and introduce a powerful new dynamic position control technique that you are absolutely going to love. Before we get into the chat, let me tell you about the member hangout. Now we're going to have a member hangout, which is going to be members only. And this hangout, we're going to hang out. We're going to have a chat. I want to get to know you. I want to tell you more about the membership. I want to understand what you would like out of a membership. I want to understand what you're trying to do with Excel. How can I create more value for you? So we're going to have the members hangout. When is the members hangout going to happen? Well, it's actually to celebrate a particular milestone, which is 50 members. But we don't have 50 members yet. We currently have 49 members. 49 members. So we'll do the members hangout when we get to 50 members. So if somebody signs up during the stream, we're going to do the hangout after this stream. We'll do it at about 16:45 after this stream. If you're interested in channel membership, click join below this video. We've got Members Monday, which is our super cool weekly live session with me and lots of other stuff. Otherwise, we have a simple £1 membership. You can just show your support for the channel. I'd really appreciate that too. If we get to 50, I'll get a notification in the chat and then we'll have a members hangout. No Excel, just having a chat. I want to get to know you and see what you're trying to do with Excel. Okay, who's with us today in the chat? So thanks everybody for coming to 30 for 30. Lee is with us first in. Welcome, Lee. Frank is with us from Holland. Welcome, Frank. Adrian, welcome. Ian Lamb, welcome. Jasmine, welcome. Henrik. Now, Henrik is now the Excel guy. Fantastic stuff. So, Henrik, welcome. Andrew, welcome. Who else is with us today? Gooser is with us. Welcome. Peter Jones has had a walk today. Could it be any better? Go out and have a nice walk in the sun and then a bit of 30 for 30. Okay, maybe it could be a bit better. But anyway, Peter, welcome. Fantastic stuff. Ian Box, welcome. Henrik, our other Henrik, welcome. Henrik, how are you? Vladimir is with us. Welcome. Simon, welcome. Klaus is with us as well. Another one of our members. Welcome, Klaus. Joanna is with us. Welcome. Vladimir, Gary Wilson, welcome. Bjarne is with us. Welcome, Bjarne. Michael, welcome. Mike, welcome. And is that everybody? I think that's everybody. If I haven't covered you, Mike Pontapenko's here. Long time no see. Mike's a long-term supporter of the channel. Welcome, Mike. Good to see you again. Chris Forrester, welcome. Willem, Stanislav, welcome. If I've missed everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Right, let's get into our task. We have the download file in the description below this video. Now we're appreciating the benefit of our planning and conceptualization, because we're not just looking at a blank canvas. We're actually looking at a plan or a framework for getting this job done. A bit like yesterday, I used the example of an architect or a builder. A bit like a builder might look at some plans for a house or whatever the builder is building. We have our plan, our framework for how our code might work. And let me add at this point, it's great to see people in the chat saying, oh, I tried to do this myself last night. We had Frank. Frank has done part of the task. Lee has done something as well. I don't know if it was related to this task, but guys, go ahead, see what you can do on your own. I'm not going to be here all the time. It's actually my goal to put myself out of a job. And I want you to go ahead and start doing things on your own. With that said, let's get into this task. We're going to deal with these two lines of pseudocode here. So we've got to define the range of cells that we're going to work with. And there's a critical point here that we pointed out yesterday, which is we want dynamic quality. Dynamic quality. Now, all my Members Monday members will know I'm always talking about dynamic quality, but what does it mean? Well, how many rows have we got in this data set? We've got about 500 rows of data here. Any data in real life is going to be, people are going to want to add to it. People are going to want to take away from it. And this is one of the biggest challenges to the Excel VBA programmer. Can we make it so people can carry on using the file, adding data to it, and the code still works? If the code can respond to, cater for changes like the change in the size of the data set, then we have what we call a dynamic solution. And that's what we're going to aim for. Now, powerful stuff, dynamic solutions. The code is also tricky. Yeah, it's powerful, but as with anything that's worth learning, takes a bit of time to learn. So you've got to pay special attention to syntax today. Let's get started with a foundational concept. Are you writing down the foundational concepts? I hope you've got these all around your kitchen now, and your family's like, God, what's happened to Lee? Is he going mad? He's just writing these letters on piece of paper and sticking them on the wall. I want to see these up on your wall, our foundational concept. Today's foundational concept, range, range, range. This is the concept we're using when we're dynamically defining ranges. So what does it mean? Well, we say to Excel, we want to define a range. Excel's like, okay. And then this is the start of the range. So the second range of the three ranges is the start point. Let's go ahead and just make that clearer. And the third range is, you've guessed it, the third range is the end point. So this syntax, super powerful, facilitates that dynamic functionality. So how would we go about referencing a range? And we're going to put a loop around this syntax so that we loop through each cell in the range. But let's do something simpler first. Let's just try to select the range and then do it dynamically. So let's do it super simple first. So do it in a static way rather than a dynamic way. So what's the first cell? Let's suppose we're going to loop through the category column. The first cell is D4 and the last cell. So I'm just using the control key, holding down control and then hitting the down arrow. And the last cell is D503. So if we were to do it in super simple terms, we could say range D4 to D503. And then the syntax to select, the select method, we can just go .select. Make sure you download the file. You're working along with me. So if I hit the F5 key now, or you can hit the play button here, hit the F5 key. And then we certainly have something selected. I'm now scrolling down. Manually, if you like, and then we can see just the bottom there we go. So yeah, we've selected to 503. So our aim today is to do that in a dynamic way, so that if we were to do this, add some data at the bottom, Control C, Control V, of course, then our code would still work, and we wouldn't have this happening where, just gonna have to scroll down to the bottom again without clicking the spreadsheet, bear with me a second. This situation, which you often see with code, the code works to a certain point, but the parameters of the code are hard-coded values. Remember, we're trying to avoid that. So rather than the hard-coded values, we want to go for our dynamic solution. Who can tell me in the chat? We've got our foundational concepts here. So range, range, range. What's our magic piece of syntax? And I'm looking at David's here today. David from South Africa, welcome. And I'm looking at our members. Lee's with us today. Jasmine's with us today. What's our magic piece of syntax that allows us to get this dynamic quality? Well, let's look at a different way of doing this referencing. So we're moving towards range, range, range. Is this going to work? I think this works. D503 .select. So give this syntax a go. This is going to have the same effect. We've got some good answers coming in the chat, by the way. This is going to have the same effect. It's going to do the same thing, but you can see the syntax is slightly different, and the syntax is moving towards where we want to get to, which is our range, range, range concept. Going to delete our original syntax here. So hit the F5 key again, and I can see there's been a selection. I'm going to have to work down to the bottom here. And yeah, the selection is as it was before. You can just see it in your screenshot at the bottom. So if we can do this, we're getting very close to working dynamically with this range. Now already in this stream, just going to delete, I'm just going to put a row in here actually, Control Shift plus here. You've seen me use keyboard shortcuts to get to the end of a data set. So hold down the Control key and then the down arrow. Yeah, on the Windows PC, maybe somebody in the chat could put the Mac equivalent here. Hold down Control key, hit the down arrow, and then hold down the Control key and hit the right arrow. That takes us to the end of the selection. So Excel understands where the end of the range is. It's going to take us to the next empty row. So Excel understands how to do that. That means we can do it using our VBA as well. And if we can integrate this, then we should be able to get some dynamic function going. So I'm going to say d4.end, and here's the magic, xldown.select. So we're not using range now. We're just having an intermediary step towards this super powerful construct here. In fact, just to make things nice and viewable, I'm going to say B4 here. Let's go for V4. And now hitting the F8 key, going through the code. Now, what will be the next cell selected? I just demoed it with the keyboard, translated that keyboard action into VBA. So let's pause the video and what is the next cell going to be selected? What am I trying to say here? What cell will be selected? Here we are, F8 key. We can see we've gone down to the bottom there. It's taking us to the next empty row. And we've got some nice variants of this. So we can say XL to right. I'm going to stop this briefly. And then where are we going to go next? If I execute this code, so outside of your screenshot, I'm going to execute the code. So what cell is going to be selected now? Now we're using XL to right, and we can see XL started in B4, and then went across. Confusing you now, aren't I? Let's do this again. Started in B4, and then it's going to go across to the next empty column in this case. And that's with this line of code here. Oh no, got the Dell support assist is back. Anyway, I'll go to the chat quickly. Hopefully this will close. And I'll go to the chat and see what ideas have you got for this syntax. Yeah, good to see some ideas coming in the chat here. And some people have actually gone on to suggest the final approach that we're going to use here. Welcome, Alistair, by the way. Okay, yeah, XL down or last row. Yes, that's good, Bjarne. So XL down is what we use. Yeah, Mike said dot range XL down. That's what we used. Now, some people are suggesting XL up. So if you're at home now, try substituting XL up for XL to right or XL down. That's going to be our kind of final solution today. Yeah, Mike in the chat, Mike Potapenko, is articulating some good ideas, some interesting logic about how we could do this. Yep, and people are guessing which cell that we're getting to. So well done, guys. Good interaction with the chat. Welcome, Deepak. Good to see you today. Welcome, AJ, as well. Good to see you today. Okay, I think our scan is gone. Yep, and we're back in business here. So can you bring these ideas together to dynamically select our range here? And I'm just going to delete this one now, hitting the delete key on the keyboard. So we're happy with our start point, and we are assuming here, that the data starts there. So it would be a good idea at this point to write that assumption down, because we want to tell the client that, you know, you can't be adding rows above this data set. So, well, let's write it down here. Assume data starts in D4. In D4. So yeah, it's a good idea to make some assumptions. You know, we could try to do that dynamically too, but it's fair enough to call on the customer to be sensible. You know, and I find that customers tend to respond well when you tell them, listen, you've got to use this file in a certain way. You can't just do anything you like. So it's sensible to make an assumption there. And then we go to our second piece of syntax. So remember, we've got the end point of the selection here. And here we say dot end XL down. So again, you might want to guess when we run this code. Let me see if I can get a good view for you. When we run this code now, what range is going to be selected? And remember, we've got an empty row here. Can I go over to the other side of the screen? So let's go ahead, give it a try. Hitting the F8 key. Yeah, we need to change this syntax. There we go. Hopefully somebody in the chat spotted that. Yeah, because we want Excel to start at D4 and then to go to the end of the row, the next empty row, starting at D4. So hit the F8 key and we can see we've got our range selected there. Let's see what might happen. I'm just deleting that dog value. What's going to happen now? And, you know, as with anything, we've got to appreciate the downsides, the pros and the cons. So it looks powerful, but what range is going to be selected now? We're only going to go to the next empty row. Control Z here. Delete this row, Alt HDR. So now we have continuous data here. You know, there's no interruptions in the data. So if you hold down the control key and the down arrow, so what range is going to be selected now? Are you appreciating the power of this dynamic technique? Hit the F8 key here. And then we should have our whole range selected. I'm going to get scrolling down to the bottom. And you can see, yes, we have our whole range selected there. You can do some experimentation, add some more data to the bottom, and we should have that, whatever data is added, as long as there's no empty rows, that should also be selected. So this is what I suggest we do. Now, we've appreciated the power of that. We've also touched on some of the weaknesses of that. And a few times during this course, particularly in the last session, I said we want to avoid empty rows when we're doing data input, doing it manually, or when we're creating a mechanism such as a user form to do data input. We want to avoid having empty cells. You know, it's better to type in something like no entry here or not applicable, whatever it might be, rather than having an empty cell there. And you can see the reason why, because code doesn't work too well with empty cells. With that said, there is a way around this, and this will move us towards our most powerful solution. Not necessary, but very interesting for us. And this is the way I would do it in my work as well. You know, this solution is fine. This is going to work 95% of the time, but it's good for our learning and to create a solution that's almost foolproof to go ahead and try to do that. Try a different approach. Now, what would the logic be here? What would the logic be? Now, if you scroll up the chat, Mike Potapenko has made some good contributions about how the logic could work, and Ian Box in the chat as well. Some good logic about how this might work. But our approach at the moment, if we're just to articulate it in English, just describe the logic, is to start at the top and go to the bottom. Start at the top of the data set and go to the bottom. Now, Ian and Mike previously spoke about an alternative approach would be to start at the bottom of the spreadsheet and then to go back to the top. So I'm going to go to the desktop view now. So effectively go to the bottom of the spreadsheet using the control key here, holding down the control key. Down cursor will take us to the end of the data set. If you do control and down arrow again, takes us to the end of the world, the end of the spreadsheet here. So the last row in the spreadsheet is 1048576. So this raises, you know, an interesting possibility for us. Could we start at the bottom and then using .end Excel up, which a few people in the chat have suggested, start at the bottom and then go to the top and define the data set that way? Let's see if we can do that. And how best to do this? I think using a variable, we could do this. We could do this without a variable, but the syntax might get quite complicated. So I'll retain this in the file. And let's have a variable here. I'm going to say end row, a meaningful name for the variable. And then I'm going to use a long variable here. You could use integer. Integer is only going to work up to about 32,000, I think. So if we've got a big number, we don't know how big our data set is going to get, then you can use a long variable. And now we can work with this variable. Let's go here. And then it's something like, okay, let's start column D again. Okay, and now we need some syntax to give us. In fact, let's do this kind of manually first. So what was the number of the last row in the spreadsheet? Can you remember? Control down arrow. So it's 1048576. 1048576. Is that it? 1048576. There we go. Okay, so now we're starting at the end of the spreadsheet at the bottom and then saying to Excel, let's go back up to the top. So Excel up, got some nice prompts there. And if we say dot row, we're going to say the row property. That means we're going to get a number into the variable, that row number there. Looking at this syntax, is this going to work? I think it is. Right, let's give it a go. Using the F8 key, going through the code, and then didn't get an error message. So I'm now going to hover the cursor over the end row variable, and you can see we've got 505 there. So that seems to have worked. So control and up now, and we're going to 505 here. So that did seem to work well. Now, what's the advantage of this technique? Well, this technique, now let's say we have an empty row here. And let's run the code again. I'm going to use a message box to externalize the value of the variable here. End row. There we go. So we have an empty row here. Going to play the code with the F5 key. There we go. And we have 505 there. So can you see the specific advantage of that second approach? It means if we do have empty rows, we can handle them. So that gives us the end row, but now we still want to select the range. Okay. So how might we do that? Let's copy this line of code. It's going to substitute it in here. So we're still using the range concept, the foundational concept here. So we're happy with D4 being the starting point, but it's the end point that we want to deal with now. And we're going to do this slightly differently because we already have the end row value assigned to a variable here. And we do this by speech marks and an and sign here. And the and sign is going to concatenate or join together the D for the cell address with, I think we need 2 brackets there, with the value of the variable. Again, I'm having a good look at this syntax. Excel seems to like it. D, so end row. Okay. So using the F8 key again and stepping through the code, do we have a value assigned to the variable? Yes, we do. So now when I hit F8, we do have a range selected. Going down to the bottom here, and do we have, yeah, we do have the right range selected, and it's quite nicely illustrated here. We can see we have an empty row, but we do have the whole range selected. So this is the way I propose that we define the range. Let me know, guys, in the chat, are you following along with this? And let me just once again point out the members hangout. So if we do get a member in this stream, we're currently on 49 members. I'm now checking our channel membership. Have we had another member in this stream? Let's have a look. No, we're still on 49, guys, still on 49. So if you fancy doing the members hangout, then just click join below this video. If we have another member sign up before the end of the stream, we'll do the members hangout today. If not, we'll do it tomorrow. And remember, the members hangout, we're just going to have a chat. And I want to learn some more about you, how you're using Excel, what you're trying to get done in Excel, and how I can help you and what we can put in our membership. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Yeah, Mike with some good contributions. Michelle, welcome. Good. Okay, welcome, Michelle. Good to see you tuning in for your first stream. Welcome, Vladimir. Yep, Vladimir, I think we're thinking along similar lines there. Okay, yep, some good contributions in the chat. So it's good to see people following along there. Yep, so well done. Yeah, that's a good point from Ian. So finally, yeah, we do have a hard-coded value here. You know, you could say, well, it's a hard-coded value, but the number of cells in the spreadsheet, is that going to change? Well, who knows? It might do. It might do one day. So rather than hard-coding this value, we could just say to Excel, use the number of rows in the spreadsheet. So this line of code here, rows.count, and you don't have to be specific about which spreadsheet because we can assume the same number of rows will be available in each spreadsheet on each sheet, regardless of if the number of rows changes or not. Yeah, this means we avoid, as Ian said in the chat, we avoid hard-coded values. Let's test this out. And we have the same result here. Scroll down to the bottom. Been doing a lot of scrolling today, hey? And we can see, yeah, we have the same value, the same range selected there. So that's how we deal with, let me know if there's any final questions in the chat, guys. So that's how we deal with defining ranges dynamically. And you're going to love this. Your customer's going to love this because it allows us to create files that we can hand over to a customer and say, yeah, you can keep adding data to the file. So we're moving from a situation where we're doing analysis ourselves, which is what a lot of Excel analysts do. They do the analysis themselves and give it to the client. It's much more interesting. And what my job is actually creating files for people to use themselves so they can get the insights and they can get the answers themselves. That's what dynamic coding allows us to do. It's essential, really. If you want to do serious Excel VBA consultancy, it's essential to be able to do this dynamic coding so that you can create files that people can use over time. I've got files that are created 4, 5, 6 years ago that are still in use. And the reason they're useful is because they have dynamic mechanisms in them like this that allows people to keep using it on an ongoing basis. So let me know, guys, any final questions here? Just going back through the chat. Yeah, some people are talking about table ranges. Yeah, you can define ranges as a table. And that does provide some advantages in terms of Excel will automatically add data to the bottom of the table. Personally, I don't like tables because the formula references get very complicated. So I prefer this kind of dynamic method. Any other questions here? Welcome, Samuth, in the chat. Haven't seen you yet. Good to have you with us from Cambodia. David says, how about we make a form? I'm not going to do any forms on this series, but we have a series on the channel called Excel VBA User Forms for Beginners, one of our more popular series if you want to have a look at user forms. I do always say to people about user forms, a word of warning, you probably don't need them. Okay, the best way to do data input in Excel is often to create a spreadsheet to do the data input rather than using a user form. User forms get very complicated and they bring some difficulties with them that can be difficult to cope with as a beginner. But we do have that series on the channel, Excel VBA User Form for Beginners. Yeah, Gary's got a good point here. What if the category column changes to a different column? What if the category column changes to a different column? So we're going to assume that it doesn't change. So we spoke about assumptions earlier in the stream. So I'm going to assume that, yeah, it's not changing. But if it did change, well, there's different ways we could deal with that. We could say, we could have a cell at the top here and say choose something like choose category column. Choose category column and then get the customer to put the letter in the cell. And then in the VBA, rather than having the D hard-coded here, you could use the value in that range. But as I said, I think in most instances, you could make that assumption, but there's ways for us to work around it. Okay, guys, anything else in the chat? So well done for keeping up with us here. Good. Good. Okay, yep, some good conversations in the chat. David says not use form, using the spreadsheet. I don't think we're going to do anything along those lines, David, to be honest, because we've going to have quite a lot to do. I was kind of planning it out today, how we could do each stream. So I don't think we're going to do anything about data input as such. In Members Monday, we do have some great videos about doing data input in Excel VBA. So once again, let me plug the membership one more time. Get yourself a membership. We haven't had a member, I don't think, on the stream. So we won't be doing our Hangout today unless we get a member signing up in the next few seconds. Just checking the membership numbers here. We currently have 49 numbers. Yes, but I do recommend our Members Monday live stream, and at least one of the videos, I think maybe two, is about data input. So setting up a spreadsheet so the user can enter data. There's lots of features available in Excel and a few in Excel VBA, but maybe in Excel that are kind of underused, that really help us to do data input. As one of our first Members Monday, maybe number 3 or number 4. When you join up for Members Monday, you do get a content navigator, which is the second point down there. A content navigator, which is an Excel file that tells you what happens in each stream. So if you're looking for a particular topic, you should be able to find it there. Yes, so things like drop-down menus, Adrian's saying in the chat. Yeah, that kind of thing. Henrik says user form is very good if you involve others to put data in. I mean, user form is good if you can get it working properly and you can do the coding around it. Yeah, it's good. You know, it looks good, tends to impress people. But what I'm saying is almost everything you're doing in a user form, you can do in the spreadsheet. So you don't need a user form as such. Good. And Jasmine says around Members Monday 10 for data validation. Good stuff, guys. Okay, so you've done your first dynamic coding, and this is super powerful stuff, and I hope you integrate it into your practice. And tomorrow we will be continuing with our Excel VBA tasks. So I hope this whole period isn't too weird for you. I'm loving hanging out here in the 30 for 30 series, and tomorrow we'll be on to session 18, isn't it? So I'll see you at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Take care. See you then.